What happens when a desperate single mom trying to save her son crosses paths with a CEO forced to get married? If this love story speaks to your heart, help us reach our 1,000 subscriber milestone. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're watching us from, and please like this video to support the channel. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Ella White stood in the shadows of the downtown park, her hand gripping the strap of her handbag tightly. A tall figure appeared under the dim streetlight. "You are Ella?" His voice was low, cautious. "Yes. Are you the one who contacted me?" The man handed her an envelope. "Everything you need is in here. Follow the plan exactly, and I promise your son will have a chance." Before Ella could ask anything else, the man turned and disappeared into the darkness. A few days later, at the headquarters of Hamilton Enterprises, Julian Hamilton stared at the fresh stack of documents laid before him, feeling as if the ground was crumbling beneath his feet. 35 years old, one of the most successful businessmen in the country, CEO of Hamilton Enterprises with billions in revenue, yet now he was staring down an ultimatum from his own father. "This has to be a joke, right, Dad?" Julian finally spoke, his voice taut, almost cracking. Charles Hamilton, a man in his 70s who still carried an air of commanding authority, merely smirked. "You think I'm joking? This updated will has been fully notarized. You have 6 months to get married. If you don't, you lose everything. Your CEO position, your shares in the company, even your right to inherit Hamilton Enterprises. You can't do this to me. I've spent my entire life building this company with you." "Exactly, and that's the problem. You've spent your whole life working. I don't need a family to run a successful company. But you need a family to be a whole person. Son, this empire means nothing if you have no one to share it with. I lost your mother too soon, and I know now that none of this success compares to even one moment of joy with the person you love. And you think forcing me to marry is the way to find that joy? I'm not forcing you to fall in love. I'm forcing you to open the door to the possibility. 6 months, Julian. The clock has already started." As Julian stepped out of the office, the crumpled will still in his hand, he knew one thing for sure. His father wasn't bluffing. 6 months to find a wife, or lose everything he'd spent a lifetime building. At the hospital. "Samuel, sweetheart, how are you feeling today?" Ella suavemente cepilló el cabello frágil de su hijo de 8 años que yacía en la cama del hospital. The boy tried to smile, but that smile only made Ella's heart ache. "I'm okay, Mom. It doesn't hurt as much as yesterday." Ella tried to keep her expression calm, though inside, she was breaking. It had been 3 years since Samuel was diagnosed with a rare congenital heart defect, and his condition was worsening by the day. The surgery doctors had recommended was his best hope, but with a cost nearing $500,000, it felt like a distant dream for a single mother like her. "I have some good news. I found a promising job opportunity. If I get it, we might be able to afford your surgery soon." "Really? Then I'll be able to play basketball like the other kids?" "I promise you. I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen." Ella sits in the hospital hallway, opens the secret envelope, and begins to put her plan into action, to approach Julian Hamilton. As expected, after submitting her application, she received an email back inviting her to interview for a secretary position tomorrow at Hamilton Enterprises headquarters. Julian sat behind the massive oak desk, eyes scanning through the next applicant's file. As he read through Ella White's file, something caught his attention. It wasn't just her education or experience that made her a good fit for the assistant position. It was what she wrote under reason for applying. "I need this job to pay for my son's heart surgery." That rare honesty intrigued Julian. With the help of his investigative team, he had everything on Ella White within hours. 32 years old, single mother of a boy named Samuel with a congenital heart condition, no relatives, drowning in medical debt, and desperate for a way to afford the operation. Perfect. It had been 2 weeks since his father's ultimatum, and Julian still hadn't found a solution. Hiring a fake wife seemed like the only way. It was Ella. Ella stepped into the CEO's office at Hamilton Enterprises with her heart pounding in her chest. The vast room, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, made her feel smaller than ever. As the door closed behind her, she faced the most powerful man in the company. "Ms. White, please have a seat." "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me, Mr. Hamilton. I've read your file," Julian got straight to the point, "and I also know about your son's condition." "I don't understand what you mean." "I didn't bring you here for the assistant position. I need a wife." Ella blinked, thinking she must have misheard. "Excuse me?" "A fake wife," Julian clarified, turning to face her. "I need to get married within 6 months to secure my position at the company. No emotions involved, just a business arrangement." Ella felt like she had just stepped into a ridiculous play. "And you think I would agree to that?" $1 million. Enough to cover your son's surgery and still ensure his future. "I understand this is an unexpected offer," Julian continued, seeing her hesitation. "But this is a mutually beneficial transaction. I keep my company, your son gets to live. After 1 year, we'll quietly divorce, and you'll receive the final payment." 1 year? That's right. Enough time to convince my father the marriage is real. I won't ask for anything beyond boundaries. We'll live under the same roof, appear together at public events, but each of us will have our own space. I need to know my son will get the surgery immediately, Ella finally spoke, and I want everything in writing. "Of course, I'll arrange for your son to be treated at the best hospital by the best surgeon. As for the contract, my legal team already has one prepared." He opened a drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and placed it in front of Ella. "Every term is clearly outlined. You're welcome to hire your own lawyer to review it if you'd like." Ella looked down at the contract, then up at the man who would become her husband. "Mr. Hamilton, I need to know one thing. Why me?" "I agree," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "For my son." As arranged by Julian, the day finally came when Ella was brought to meet his father. Dinner at the Hamilton estate unfolded in a tense, almost suffocating silence, despite the private chef having prepared the finest dishes. Julian introduced her to his father and announced that he would marry Ella in 3 months. "Good," Charles nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I appreciate honesty. However, there is one small issue." He set down his glass and looked directly at Julian. "The will only goes into effect if the two of you have a child together." Julian nearly choked on his food. "What?" "I want an heir for the Hamilton legacy. This isn't just about you getting married, Julian. It's about building a real family." Charles finished speaking and went upstairs. Ella looked after him and nodded as if there was some secret. After that conversation, Julian wore a look of concern as he consulted Ella. I think we should focus on a solution." "A solution? What solution could we possibly have for this?" Julian let out a bitter laugh. "We can't actually have a child? This is a fake marriage." "We could pretend I'm pregnant." "All right," he finally agreed. "We'll do it your way, but everything has to be carefully planned." The next day, Ella moved into Julian's luxurious penthouse. They were careful to keep their distance. Julian spent most of his time at the office, while Ella cared for Samuel in the hospital. But as time passed, the lines between them began to blur. Everything started to shift one night when Julian came home and found Ella sitting on the couch, crying. Her phone was still open in her hand, showing a picture of her son. Ella had been crying and sharing how Samuel's first surgery had taken a dangerous turn. Thankfully, he pulled through, but the fear from that day still hadn't left her. That night, they sat together for hours. "My son is all I have." His father left after learning that Samuel had a heart condition. "I vowed to do everything to protect him." "Samuel's lucky to have a mother like you." "Thank you for listening. I can't remember the last time I shared something like this with anyone." That moment marked a shift in their relationship. From then on, the walls Julian had built for years slowly began to crumble. He started coming home earlier, looking forward to their evening conversations. They visited Samuel together, and Julian was surprised to realize how much he genuinely cared for the smart, brave little boy. Samuel's second surgery was a success, thanks to Julian's intervention. And when the boy was healthy enough to be discharged for a short break, Julian arranged a weekend getaway for the three of them at the Hamilton family's beachside villa. Standing on the balcony overlooking the ocean, Ella couldn't help but feel joy watching Samuel run along the shore, with a burst of energy she hadn't seen in him in years. Julian stood beside the boy, teaching him how to skip stones across the water. That night, after Samuel had gone to bed, Julian found Ella sitting alone on the beach. He sat down beside her in silence, watching the stars with her in the night sky. "Thank you for everything you've done for Samuel. I've never seen my son this happy." Julian smiled softly. "He's a great kid. I enjoy spending time with him." "Ella," he whispered, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Ella looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "Julian, we shouldn't—" "I know," Julian cut her off. "This wasn't part of the plan, but what I feel, it's real. I've never felt this way about anyone." Ella felt tears rising. "You don't know what you're saying. We're too different." Before Ella could protest, Julian's lips pressed against hers in a kiss that was gentle but filled with longing. And though every rational part of her told her to pull away, Ella found herself returning the kiss with equal intensity. That night, under the moonlight and the sound of the waves, they crossed the boundary of their original agreement, indulging in true feelings. A week had passed since that night on the beach, and everything between Julian and Ella had completely changed. There were no more silent dinners or awkward conversations. Instead, they found joy in each other's presence, sharing stories, dreams, and fears. One day, on her way to work, Ella met Charles. Just as Julian was about to call out to Ella, he heard his father's voice. "I think it's time we had a frank talk, Ella," he said, his voice calm. "You've done very well, Ella. I must admit I didn't think this plan would work, but you've exceeded my expectations." "I just did what we agreed on," Ella replied. Julian felt as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped over him. Agreement? Plan? Julian has changed more than I ever expected. He's finally learned the meaning of love and family, and that's because of you, Ella. Julian is a good man. You should be proud of your son. I've always been proud of him, but I worried about his loneliness. When I found out about Samuel's condition and learned about your situation, I knew you two could help each other. I just didn't expect my son to actually fall in love with you." Julian felt the room spin. His father had orchestrated everything? That meant Ella had known from the beginning? She had been lying to him this entire time? Unable to hold back, Julian pushed the door open, startling both Charles and Ella. "Julian!" Ella gasped, her face paling as she saw the fury in his eyes. "So this is the truth. It was all just a play, staged by my father. And you, Ella, you were just the actress hired to make me believe someone could actually love me." "No, Julian, you don't understand." Ella rushed toward him, but Julian stepped back. "I've heard enough," he said. "The agreement ends right now. You'll get the money you were promised, and after that, we're done." Julian turned and walked away, feeling heartbroken and angry. The following week passed under a suffocating cloud. Julian spent most of his time at the office, avoiding Ella as much as possible. Samuel's final surgery went smoothly. The doctors announced that his heart had been completely repaired and he would be able to live a normal, healthy life. On the day Samuel was discharged, Julian decided to visit the boy one last time before their departure. He brought a gift, a basketball signed by Samuel's favorite team, and braced himself for the difficult goodbye. But when he arrived at the hospital, the strange silence around Samuel's room made him pause. The room was empty, no familiar bed, no soft laughter from Samuel, no gentle smile from Ella. Julian's brow furrowed as he rushed to the nurse's station. "Where's Samuel White?" "The boy in room 403. The nurse glanced at the file and offered a polite smile. "Samuel was discharged this morning. His mother said they were relocating." "Relocating? Where?" Julian felt his heart plunge into a deep abyss. "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to disclose that information." She was gone, without notice, without a trace. He was the one who asked her to leave, but at this moment he was numb. But just as he was about to leave, his eyes caught sight of the children's book, something he had once bought for Samuel, now left behind in the hospital room. Julian picked it up and flipped through it, when suddenly a thin piece of paper slipped out and fell from inside. He picked it up, his eyes scanning the words. Pregnancy test result, St. Grace Hospital. Patient name, Ella White. Result, positive. His entire body felt like it had been struck by lightning. She was pregnant? His child? Without a moment's hesitation, Julian started the car. There was only one place he could think of. A small beach in Carmel, the place Ella once said was Samuel's dream. A small house near the sea where mother and son could start over. The ocean breeze lightly blew through Ella's hair as she stood on the porch, her eyes following Samuel playing basketball on the sand. A sudden screech of tires made Ella turn in surprise. The small wooden gate swung open. Julian stepped in, his eyes red, whether from the sea breeze or from tears. "Julian," Ella gasped, nearly dropping her tea. He didn't say a word, just pulled out the paper she had left behind and held it up. "How long were you planning to hide this from me?" Ella was speechless, her hand instinctively covering her belly. "I was going to tell you. I was scared." Julian stopped in front of her, the anger in his eyes replaced with hurt and longing. "I want everything, Ella. You, Samuel, this baby. I can't live without you." "Are you sure? After everything? More sure than anything in my life." "About time you said that, son." They turned. Charles Hamilton stood there, hands in the pockets of his coat, his expression calm, his eyes warm. "Dad." Julian was stunned. "I followed you because I knew you'd go after her." Charles stepped closer, looking at Ella sincerely. "I'm sorry for dragging you into all this, but I don't regret it, because through you, my son finally learned what really matters." He looked at Julian, his eyes shining brighter than ever. "You've grown up, son, not because of the company, but because you've learned how to love, how to forgive, and how to hold on to what's truly valuable." Julian held Ella's hand, pulling her closer. "I'm not letting her go again." Charles nodded, pride gleaming in his eyes. "That's enough." 1 year later, at the small garden party filled with flowers at the Hamilton estate, guests kept congratulating Julian and Ella as they held a newborn baby girl in their arms, their first daughter, Ava Hamilton. Julian looked at Ella, peace shining in his eyes. "Thank you for not giving up." Ella sonrió, apoyando su cabeza en su hombro. "Thank you for finding me." Love sometimes begins with something fake, but when the heart is brave enough to trust again, the miracle becomes real. Julian also realized that what his father did wasn't to control, but to protect. Love is not a weakness, but the strength that makes a man become the best version of himself. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of love, resilience, and second chances. See you in the next story.